great day in Dalton. Justice is being...
Lock and key before.
This was under lock and key.
It is a lovely day in town where justice is being served, and Alan Thoron, the town's elected assessor for the past 10 years, has witnessed it all, from assisting residents with property tax exemptions to handling appeals. However, something strange happened this morning when she arrived at work. Last month, the board approved a proposal calling for a federal inquiry into the mayor after an emergency meeting. She discovered boxes with private information scattered over the common area in addition to being locked out of her office. In recent weeks, alarming information concerning Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, has surfaced. The FBI apprehended her. Authorities suspected Henyard of embezzling local cash, claiming that she had left the community in unimaginable debt. The inquiry into her acts has become increasingly concerning since federal officers executed a search order at her residence and discovered a treasure. There is an abundance of stunning information that you may remember from Henyard's luxurious lifestyle, which included lavish vacations and shopping sprees financed by suspicious wire transfers, safes containing secret assets, and more dubious. Henyard's actions have destroyed Dalton's finances, leaving the town on the verge of bankruptcy. In the meantime, she lived the high life, resembling a Kardashian with designer purses, international travel, and a lavish security detail, all funded by. She was supposed to be providing the FBI with sufficient evidence to file criminal charges against Henyard as the investigation into her corrupt activities continues. But instead, she seemed to be living a life well removed from the town's financial difficulties, while the hardworking taxpayers of Dalton struggle to make ends meet. How many more deceptive lies are still the main question? One thing is certain, though, the drama is far from done. Will she be able to ignore the growing evidence beneath her opulent lifestyle, or is her tenure as mayor coming to an end? Residents of Dalton are calling for answers, and they will soon receive them as the investigation moves forward. The FBI is keeping a close eye on Henyard, and although the full scope of her actions is still unknown, more revelations are coming to light. The scandal is growing, and it's getting harder to ignore the truth. Stay tuned for updates as the story is just beginning.
Have trust issues, refusing to second a motion by Tiffany Henyard to get routine township bills paid.
I motion that we pay the bills for the general fund. Is that second? Is there a motion?
Trouble following it as well, but now Keith Freeman is cooperating, doing what should have been done in the first place.
Cooperating with trustees.
With the trustees, absolutely.
Over the past several months, Tiffany Henyard, Dalton's most notorious mayor, has experienced a dramatic change. Previously a frequent source of controversy, she has seemingly disappeared from the public eye, casting a shadow of mystery over her abrupt disappearance despite what seemed to be an inevitable downfall. Her silence has only strengthened speculation that she is trying to avoid the increasing scrutiny that is catching up with her. It is widely believed that she has staged a Houdini disappearance from the spotlight to hide her tracks, but the real question is how long she can remain hidden before the authorities, particularly the FBI, catch her in the act of her political unraveling. She is being watched by many as if it were a high-stakes drama, with popcorn in hand, eager to see what happens next. The community is worn out by. The question raised by Henyard's antics is whether she is evading responsibility or merely withdrawing to regroup in an attempt to avoid the heat. One thing is for sure, though, the final confrontation is imminent, and the public and authorities are prepared to watch it unfold for years. Henyard's leadership style was one of unbridled power, dismissing dissenting opinions and often disregarding the concerns of the people who elected her. Alienated not only Dalton's residents but also her former political allies as her power started to wane. A town meeting was called to reaffirm her authority, but the results were far from what she had expected. Not a single member of the Board of Trustees attended, and the vacant seats sent a strong message of defiance that made it obvious that Henyard rule was no longer in place. The Board of Trustees' decision to cease following her orders effectively gave Henyard a taste of her own medicine, and she was aware that her political career was collapsing. The board, once her strongest foundation, had turned into a source of active resistance. The change was abrupt and drastic, in stark contrast to the strict control the residents of Dalton, who had formerly been optimistic about her administration, started to wonder if she could salvage anything from this situation as tensions escalated and her leadership and reputation were destroyed. Unrelenting collapse, many now perceive Henyard, who was previously thought to be a promising leader, as having put personal power ahead of public service. Growing impatience from the influence of Dalton residents is evident. For many years, Henyard had political power, but now that power has turned into a liability. The Board of Trustees was once crucial in order to publicly express its dissatisfaction and highlight the weaknesses in her leadership. Ally has fully distanced itself from her. What was once a political powerhouse now seems to be nearing the end of its existence. Will Henyard try a desperate death? Political resurgence, or does her term come to an end? She is no longer protected by institutional support or unthinking loyalty, and she is up against resistance from both her administration and the people she formerly led. At best, Han's political future appears unclear. The authority she once had without a doubt has turned into a liability, and as the pressure mounts, the once unquestioned leader now faces in. As the tragedy develops, it becomes evident that Henyard's credibility and leadership are irreversibly declining due to the extraordinary level of opposition she has received from both her own board and those who once backed her. The people of Dalton have reached a breaking point and are fed up with scandal-plagued leadership. They are demanding the long overdue accountability that Henyard has failed to provide, and the flaws in her once strong foundation are only getting wider. To produce, even if she could still think she has control over the story, the overwhelming evidence indicates that she is running out of time and options. Dalton's residents are prepared to permanently end her rule, and it appears that she is losing her hold on power, no longer refundable.
Supervisor Tiffany Henyard wanted the Board of Trustees to approve some events that she wants the township to pay for, but none of the trustees showed up for this.
Although the Board of Trustees was not present, Tiffany Henyard never shied away from rejection. She took the podium and boldly turned the situation into her personal drama, demonstrating that she was not intimidated by the lack of support. She seemed unfazed by the silent protest and publicly declared that the entire corruption scandal was part of a large-scale propaganda campaign intended to discredit her so-called magnificent administration. According to her, the animosity surrounding her was nothing more than a ploy to undermine her extraordinary command of the residents of Dalton had heard enough and were sick of her antics, so they interrupted Henyard bluntly and said, "We already know you're stealing from us." Despite this accusation, Henyard, who had always been adept at defending herself, remained unfazed. "Your super mayor became too powerful too quickly," she declared, stressing that everyone has their problems because of my rarity and uniqueness. "This is me making my statement if you guys do not wish to listen to this," she added with unusual confidence. Continued talking as if nothing had happened, displaying little concern for the growing annoyance in the room, but the evidence against her was becoming indisputable. According to credit card records that Dalton detectives had retrieved, Henyard and her team had accrued an incredible $67,000 in travel expenses on Thornton Township's tab in just 5 months. What was even more concerning was the discovery that, when the charges against Dalton residents were taken into account, the total ballooned to almost $100,000. People were starting to grow. Despite being highly suspicious of Henyard's handling of government funds, Henyard attempted to justify the extravagant spending by claiming that her attendance at various conferences was necessary for her job and that she and her group had become engrossed in these events, necessitating the expenditure of the money. Meanwhile, Dalton's finances were being recklessly wasted under her supervision, and to make matters worse, Henyard and her administration had been flagrantly ignoring public requests for records for months, violating state transparency laws even after the. Henyard's lack of transparency prompted legal action after the Illinois Attorney General's office, led by Biwell, urged the community to make the documents public. The parent firm of Gillies filed a lawsuit in C County Circuit Court over the withheld materials, and the judge, who was critical of Henyard's actions, sided with the plaintiffs despite the mounting legal pressure and the damning evidence. Henyard's supporters were determined to keep her actions a secret because this was no longer just a matter of financial mismanagement. It was a question of trust and accountability. The situation further deteriorated when the village council hired former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot to investigate Heard's financial management, and she produced shocking results. After Lightfoot revealed that she had never received the financial statements and that the trustees were in charge of routinely retrieving them, there was an instant public outcry, forcing even those who had been aware of Henyard's financial misdeeds to face the reality. In April 2022, the situation reached a breaking point when Dalton's credit card spending spiraled out of control, resulting in heavy debt. In response, the village board adopted a resolution requesting that Hen's conduct be investigated by the federal government. A significant change in the political environment was indicated by the fact that by May 2024, Dalton's finances had suffered a severe setback, as 4 of the 6 trustees who were disenchanted and irritated with her leadership attended the meeting. There was a $3.65 million loss when the overall balance fell from a robust $5.6 million. The town's finances were in serious trouble now because of Hen's disrespect for appropriate financial checks and balances. Since they were no longer willing to support Henyard, the Board of Trustees demanded an explanation for all of the dubious expenses. They also expressed their frustration with the apparent mismanagement and acknowledged that accountability was necessary if they were ever to move forward. It was evident that Henyard's influence and power were rapidly eroding. Her once strong political foundation was disintegrating, and her ability to control the narrative was no longer as certain as it once was, as Henyard's inner circle started to disintegrate, with one of her senior aides suspects being implicated in plotting with her adversaries. The inquiry against her behavior intensifies. She proceeded to take actions that raised concerns, such as the loss of 6 police cars, which had major repercussions, especially since it meant that vital police. Her decisions on security payments were also questioned, and her use of public funds for private expenses further revealed her lack of financial accountability. Despite being issued for lawful purposes, the village credit card had been used for a variety of personal purchases from Amazon, Walgreens, Wayfair, and Target. Furthermore, it was alleged that Henyard had used Dalton's money to rent upscale goods for her own use. With mounting pressure, Henyard made an effort to avoid publicity, but the FBI's investigation into her financial mismanagement only made matters worse. The agency found strong evidence of Henyard's financial difficulties, and it soon became known that the FBI had requested the disciplinary and personnel records of 29 Dalton employees. They were also investigating any contracts or payments made to Henyard's assistant Keith Freeman, who also worked for Thornton Township in a similar capacity, were discovered following a raid on Henyard's home, where investigators found a detailed list of her alleged corrupt actions. As the investigation progresses, the truth about Henyard's dishonesty is starting to come to light, and the residents of Dalton are becoming more and more irritated with her attempts to hide behind a veil of secrecy. The FBI is closing in, and Henyard is running out of options. The consequences of her actions are mounting, and it appears that her time and influence as mayor are coming to a close. Since the passing of long-standing overseer Frank Sy, Dalton, the financial environment has drastically deteriorated, and Tiffany Henyard is now working with her opponents. The mayor has also lost access to at least some power. In 2022, Tiffany Henyard was elected as the town's youngest and first female mayor. In addition to her duties as mayor, she also became the supervisor of Thornton Township. However, everything quickly fell apart as the government launched an investigation in January. Supervision inquiries within 5 months of 2023, Henyard and her colleagues charged over $7,000 to township credit cards for out-of-town vacations, according to a Journal GOI investigation of Henyard's spending practices. The accusations against her included embezzlement of public monies for private purposes, including paying for her personal protection and expensive vacations with her hairstylist. In particular, the town taxpayers paid for henhouse tours to well-known places like New York, Atlanta, and Portland. Expensive trip to Austin, Texas. That extra $33,900 was spent by the public. The expenses included $169 for the Fairmont Am Hotel and an astounding $222,000 in public dollars for a 5-day trip that featured pricey meals, including $389 for Ruth's Steaks, $43 for Walgreens, and $53 for Ryder Garments. Even while Henyard continued to defend, credit card transactions also showed that Amazon, Walmart, and Target were utilized to accrue $247 in charges. Even while she insisted that the expenditure was warranted, she found it difficult to justify the outrageous costs, which included paying $5,997 to a public photographer and $74,000 in additional unreported fees and personal expenses. Since it was evident that Henyard was enjoying a luxury lifestyle paid for by public dollars, the community was left in shock and started to doubt not only her financial choices, but also her morals and leadership skills. Many locals were growing more worried about. Hen's behavior became even more erratic as the controversy grew, increasing the financial hole she was creating for Dalton. Rumors circulated that she had gone into hiding, possibly in an attempt to avoid the growing scrutiny, but others believe that she was doubling down on her actions and refusing to take responsibility for any of her bad choices. Regional figure, a prominent voice on the matter, Jason House, said that Heng's leadership was forcing Dalton into a financial catastrophe and that she had been taking them. If you claim to have good business sense, you should take a serious look at the budget again. You work for the government and you're here to serve us, not indulge yourself. She even raised our taxes while taking us on lavish vacations, which only made the town's growing debt worse. Under Hen's leadership, several Dalton businesses have also suffered, such as Lawrence Gardner's trucking firm, which has been closed since January 2023 after Gardner was charged with selling alcohol without a permit, a claim he has refuted, saying he thinks the charges were made for political reasons. A judge has agreed with him, dismissing the charges. In addition, Gardner disclosed that he and other business owners were under pressure to give $3,500 to the village soon after Henyard assumed office. He views this as yet another instance of corruption and coercion under her leadership, and as more people turn away from the administration and lose faith in her leadership, Dalton's local businesses are suffering, and the situation has gotten worse. Even her closest friends and family are concerned about Hen's increasingly erratic decision-making, which is worrisome because she has shown little inclination to accept responsibility for her actions despite mounting public outrage. During a recent Take Our Township Back event, the people expressed their displeasure with her lack of responsibility by demanding that Henyard quit and that her lavish spending be thoroughly investigated. Motivated by the conviction that the march was a potent act of rebellion, Hen's attempts to control the budget by giving herself the only authority to approve expenses have only fueled the fire of discontent. She continues to deny the accusations, claiming that she has the documentation to prove that all of her actions were legitimate. But even as she clings to this narrative, it's becoming increasingly clear that her leadership is failing. Observers have noted her refusal to own up to her mistakes, which has further alienated the public and those who were. The drama surrounding Henyard's leadership is far from over, and it appears that her actions will not go unpunished. The people of Dalton are tired of her, and the public's pressure is mounting as the investigation continues. They are demanding that the public's interests be prioritized and that a thorough review of the budget be conducted. Many are now wondering if she can handle the storm or if her political career will collapse under the weight of these revelations. The town has reached a breaking point due to her reckless spending and refusal to accept responsibility for her actions. The people of Dalton are demanding accountability, and it is unclear if Henyard can save her reputation or if this will be the last chapter of her time in power. Her extravagant lifestyle is now fully exposed, and her leadership in tatters. Henyard faces a crisis that could end her political career.
Homeless behind her raising our taxes. And you said that you have good business skills. Then you should take a look at the budget again.
You are a public servant. You serve us.
Jason felt the need and announced his candidacy for the upcoming selection of Dalton's mayor in 2025.
Today, I'm here to proudly announce my candidacy for mayor of Dalton in February.
One thing is certain despite the growing criticism. Tiffany Henyard doesn't seem to understand the concept of accountability. Instead of accepting responsibility for her actions and owning up to her mistakes, she keeps making accusations against her, and each new charge she faces seems to feed the flames of public mistrust in her leadership. The Dalton Board formally began an investigation into Henyard's activities in March 2024 after she was accused of embezzling $70,000 in public funds for extravagant travel. The investigation involved a thorough review of the village's financial records, with the FBI called in to provide additional clarification during a board meeting. Henyard even accused the Dalton of being negligent and disrespectful of her position, which has only damaged or already damaged her reputation. As you can see, our village and community are being singled out, and Henyard acknowledged a $2 million deficit in Village Hall. The Board of Being a Boy Club rejected the investigation as a personal attack and part of a biased narrative that, in her opinion, was preventing her advancement. It's unfortunate that people can attend a meeting and only give one side of the story without hearing both sides of the issue, Henyard said during the meeting. Members subsequently disclosed that the actual deficit was significantly greater than the amount she had stated. This was just one of the numerous errors that had made Henyard's leadership more contentious. In addition to financial mismanagement, the former trustee Edward Steve pointed out that rather than placing the blame elsewhere, Henyard should examine the circumstances she had caused. The situation became even more heated when a former assistant came out with allegations of predatory behavior within the Henyard's administration. It was discovered that the assistant had been harassed by a board trustee, but Henyard rejected the allegations, claiming that making the issue public could damage her career. Henyard deliberately allied herself with the police department, according to a former village trustee, to guarantee that any charges against her would be disregarded. As federal scrutiny grew, Henyard found herself under increasing pressure from all sides. Her promises of support turned out to be hollow, and she was soon put on unpaid medical leave, with many of her closest allies deserting her. Stubbs even claimed that Henyard sent him to Target and used police officers to shoot two of her rental automobiles in order to intimidate residents who opposed her. One of Henyard's former assistants, Carvin Carlisle, has since come forward as a whistleblower, publicly condemning Henyard's activities. Today, I'm speaking out against Tiffany Henyard, the Dalton mayor and Thoron Township supervisor, who I believe has had unethical and predatory behavior during her tenure. Carlisle claimed that over the course of 2 years, Henyard continued to utilize her position to influence people, merchants, and employees while projecting a picture of success. Possible by the diligent taxpayers of Dalton and Thornton Township, but Carlisle thinks there are a lot of other victims who have been deceived or fired by Henyard, but haven't come forward yet. I thought the administration was trustworthy, so I'm speaking up now for myself and other people who have been affected by what I think is Henyard's abusive leadership. My dedication to justice and openness led me to become a whistleblower, Carlisle continued. In reaction to Carlisle's charges, Carlisle called on the people to demand stronger responsibility and treatment from local leadership, saying it's time for us to band together and hold those who misuse their power accountable. Even though the accusations were serious, Henyard remained stubborn, telling Carlisle, "I'm tired of everyone in here. There's always going to be a lion." Henyard even made fun of her newly discovered confidence, even joking, "I think I'm going to get you a new nickname." A program with her own pursuits, Henyard's refusal to confront the mounting evidence has further fueled her increasingly unpredictable behavior. She has become the very embodiment of the corruption she once condemned due to her actions, And now she is at the center of a scandal that is getting worse every day as the investigation into Henyard's activities picks up steam. Henyard has attempted to shift the blame by saying that you shouldn't have been making the same effort when you were silent a year ago, but we never discussed it. The whistleblower should have brought up the problem sooner. As the number of victims and whistleblowers keeps rising, Henyard has insisted that Carlisle is to blame despite the growing evidence against her. Nevertheless, it is evident that the drama surrounding Henyard's leadership is far from over. The investigation is still ongoing, and the pressure on Henyard only grows every day. It is unclear whether she will be held accountable for her actions or if she will manage to avoid the consequences that seem to be catching up to her for the time being. Despite the fact that she can no longer ignore the flurry of rumors and public outcry surrounding her actions, Henyard has yet to face the consequences of her actions. The situation has reached a boiling point, and Henyard's once unquestioned authority has been severely undermined as the investigation into her leadership continues. Many people are left wondering whether this will be the end of her political career or if she will survive yet another scandal. They will have to wait for justice to be served. Time will tell, but there is no doubt that the residents of Dalton are demanding answers and are unwilling to turn a blind eye. Ignore their embattled mayor's behavior, keep tuned for further updates on this evolving topic, and remember to like and sign up for the most recent information. Will Tiffany Henyard continue to avoid responsibility, or will she finally be held accountable for her actions? The drama is far from done, and it's obvious that the struggle for justice and openness is only getting started.